Electricity consumers in Barbados might have been left with more questions than answers following a decision by the country's Fair Trading Commission to approve an interim rate increase. The announcement was made at a news conference on Saturday, following which some Barbadian residents publicly shared their disapproval. Responses to an article published by Barbados Today included people sharing negative experiences with the Fair Trading Commission, which is also known as, quote, the guardian of consumer rights. Many of the narratives emphasized Barbadians' lack of trust in the FTC, with one woman emphatically stating, quote, they don't care about us. Barbados Light and Power had earlier sought permission to hike rates between $2 and $6 per month for domestic customers. The increase was deemed necessary by the energy utility to fund planned investments that would meet the needs of its consumers. The recently approved interim increase, however, will only provide an additional $1 to $3 in monthly revenue from domestic users. That's because the interim rate relief was capped at half the requested rate for all classes of consumer except employees of BLPC, who are categorized separately with a separate rate structure. At Saturday's press conference, Chief Executive Officer of the FTC, Dr. Marsha Atherley Ikechi, responded to arguments from some corners that the agency did not have the authority to improve an interim rate hike.
The first thing that the Commission had to do was to determine whether it was in a position to determine whether it had jurisdiction to determine an interim rate. The Commission did that assessment and is of the view that it has the power to set interim rates. And that is based largely on the way the legislation is written, both the Utility Regulation Act and the Fair Trading Commission Act, which speaks to every rate. So as such, you can deduce that. If that is the case and we're taking it in the ordinary meaning of the terms, it would suggest that any rate, any sub-rate would be under the ambit of the Commission to determine and make a provision on. Interim rate relief, I want to be very clear in explaining to Barbadians what interim rate relief represents. Interim rate relief is intended to be a rate that is applied during the period of regulatory lag. That is the time between an application is submitted and the time a determination on the substantive rate is issued. That time period can last anywhere between 9 months to 18 months, so it is a substantial period. It is usually asked or issued at the level that is requested directly by the utility.
The approval of the interim rate increase for BPLC preceded a hearing this week for the substantive rate increase that was requested by the utility. That matter, described as a more in-depth issue by the FTC, is the subject of a public awareness drive ahead of the proceedings.
The applicant will be present, supported by its external counsel, expert witnesses, and staff. Similarly so for the interveners. There are 7 of them at present. Staff of the Commission will also be present to support the 5 sitting commissioners which constitute the electricity panel. This panel will sit to hear and determine the matter. This process is intended to be a fully transparent one. As such, provision will be made for persons to attend in limited numbers on a first-come, first-served basis.
However, the approval of an interim increase for BPLC, a mere 3 days before public hearings on the substantive matter, has left the coalition of concerned cooperatives in shock. The coalition says the FTC's acceptance of the company's request for the interim increase was a breach of Barbados's Utilities Regulations Act. Chapter 282, Section 15.3 of the Act reads, quote, "The Commission shall not grant a request for a review by the same service provider more than once in any year." Meanwhile, a team of interveners, including utilities regulatory expert Tricia Watson and finance and accounting expert David Simpson, earlier this year also objected to the interim rate proceedings, which they argued could not be granted without a full review and public hearing. The interveners filed a motion asking the FTC to order the power company to amend its rate application. Concerns included a recent decision on asset depreciation, which the interveners said was based on incorrect rates and calculations. As depreciation rates would have an overall impact on consumers, especially if the substantive rate increase is approved, the team called on the power company to adjust their application and include the correct depreciation rates. More scrutiny on the issue is expected on Wednesday as the hearings for BPLC's substantive rate increase begin. All parties involved, including the interveners, will consider the full facts of the case. The approved interim rate was made effective as of September 16, 2022, and will remain in place until the substantive decision is issued. An initial request to have the rate apply retroactively was not approved. There is still a chance for consumers to claw back some of the extra money they are now required to pay to BPLC. If the rates are found to be excessive following the full rate review, the company will have to refund all customers with interest. Hearings for the full rate review will begin this Wednesday and will run until October 6th. They will be held at the Accra Beach Hotel in Christchurch.